Chief Denis Villeneuve's 2021 Rise was an excellently crushing scene picture, adjusting the primary portion of creator Frank Herbert's 1965 eco-tale with blustering brio. The spin-off is much greater and stronger, noting a first film brimming with table setting with an endless series of enormous set pieces. Hill, Section 2, is a gigantic film, made to be seen on a huge screen with the most vivid sound framework you can find. I should concede that before, I've found Villeneuve films cumbersome and overexpanded, so morose that they waver on self-spoof. He's the pompous expert Christopher Nolan is in many cases wrongly blamed for being. Yet the Québécois auteur's raucous reasonableness is impeccably fit to the stakes of this specific space show, and he's one of a handful of the Hollywood chiefs today who can summon a genuinely stunning feeling of scale. With uncommon special cases, establishment filmmaking has turned into a horridly televisual illicit relationship, heaps of medium shots of entertainers remaining before green screens in Georgia stockrooms. Recorded on tremendous sets worked in areas all over the planet, these Rise pictures closely resemble stinkin' movies, referring to well-known shots from Lawrence of Arabia and End Times Now as references, yet as optimistic markers. To Villeneuve, size matters. Arrakis has been pillaged for a really long time by fighting tribes from different universes battling about a valuable, psychotropic mineral called flavor that works with space travel. The fabulous first hour of Hill, Section 2, finds youthful Paul learning the methods of the Fremen, undermining Harkonnen's flavor mining endeavors with chivalrous guerrilla strikes, unequivocally coded as fearmonger assaults, complete with Islamic artists moaning over Hans Zimmer's Center Eastern Touch score. The Fremen have been projected with entertainers of variety, rather than the white European space homesteaders and the unequivocally Aryan Harkonnen. The political talk around this film will be a wreck. Javier Bardem's Stilgar fills in as a good coach to the kid and turns into a resolute devotee that this youngster is the divinely selected individual. Stumbling across the desert looking like the second happening to Anthony Quinn, Bardem gives a whimsical presentation in a film that could utilize a couple of more like it, his uninformed religiosity prodded in scenes that occasionally feel as though Monty Python's Life of Brian occurred in another universe. Rebecca Ferguson as Jessica in Rise, Section 2. Civility Warner Brothers. Paul will cooperate with this heavenly prediction business, however long the Fremen will assist him with avenging his dad's death. The difficulty emerges when it begins appearing as though the thing was anticipated is ending up being valid. Much more alarming than the Goliath sandworms in Hill, Section 2, is the world-annihilating force of strict fundamentalism. In the south of Arrakis, there are a large number of freemen who've been squandering their summers supplicating to no end for a white deliverer to ascend from these roads. It doesn't help that Jessica and her clique of witchy space nuns have been down there spreading the good news of Paul's endeavors. However, taking everything into account, what mother doesn't think her child is God's gift to the universe? What follows is a like thing, the last enticement of Timey, with our young savior seeing the terrible outcomes of his fate and figuring out how to acknowledge it in any case. Villeneuve and co-author John Spates have generally disposed of the hallucinogenic parts of the source material that recently drawn in additional theoretical movie producers like David Lynch and Alejandro Jodorowsky. These new ridges are very exacting, make sense of why films, which is a sufficiently legitimate methodology, regardless of whether the serious consistency of tone began to wear on me apiece during the film's center hour. It might seem like an unusual comment about an image in which the chief cast contains 7 Oscar-chosen people, yet I missed Jason Momoa. He carried a brave energy to the primary film that is deficient in this all-business continuation. The wispy Chalamet vindicates himself surprisingly good with the heavier stuff. Subsequent to enduring Wonka, I'd abandoned the entertainer completely. However, I saw Villeneuve keenly as Paul talking in the film's made-up Fremen language each time he wants to seem like a hard-ass. Austin Stewart as Feyd-Rautha in Hill, Section 2. Graciousness Warner Brothers. There's some diabolical entertainment as Austin Stewart's Feyd-Rautha, a carnal Harkonnen enemy for Paul. He's presented in a dazzling high-contrast grouping demonstrated after Leni Riefenstahl's Olympia, the ramifications of such a reference being totally deliberate. Something doesn't add up about seeing Elvis in a pretended a long time back in Lynch's variation by Sting. Stewart goes full ham with the enormous genuineness, duplicating Skarsgård's slurry Swedish pronunciation with a similar concentrated on devotion he brought to the Lord of Rowdy's drone. He's a hoot. The previously mentioned Sovereign of the Universe at long last shows his face as Christopher Walken. And keeping in mind that their ages don't exactly coordinate, there's as yet something grand about the giving of Florence Pugh a role as Walken's little girl. The two of them convey themselves with a somewhat outsider, privileged scorn. Unfortunately, Pugh doesn't get a lot of to-do in this image. Neither does Léa Seydoux, who vanishes after an exceptional appearance as a witchy space-pious devotee temptress. The promoting effort for the 2021 Rise was legitimately reprimanded for stowing away the Section 1, All Things Considered, in an initial credit slither, and keeping in mind that Hill, Section 2, has what feels like a more convincing finale, the film actually leaves a ton of entryways open for a third portion. I'm expecting that is the way Villeneuve pulled off such a drearily premonition, downbeat last scene. Given the conditions and the condition of the world this moment, it's most likely the main capable method for completing the film. All things considered, heavenly conflicts resemble Hollywood establishments. They never truly end.